From Los Angeles and Nashville, get ready to go behind the scenes with Entertainment Dudes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Entertainment Dudes.
Dudes.
I'm Jason Crossman, your director dude, along with
Cam Cornelius, your voiceover dude. Dude.
I think your reverb is up a little bit.
Oh, so, dude. Is that better?
That's better. That's workable.
Okay. Cam Cornelius, your voiceover dude.
So, speaking of voiceover dude, I heard you on the what is it, the wrestling, the WrestleMania or whatever.
Oh!
Dude, that was great. Yeah. Hey, let's play. Can we run that real quick? Can we have that on the show? Or
yeah, we could. I think we can run that real quick.
Okay, run this. You guys want to hear this. This is great voiceover work.
They are the plaintiffs, 20 angry guards. These professionals are seeking justice and looking for retribution. This is the defendant, Wardlow, the man known as Mr. Mayhem. He's accused of leaving a path of destruction. They have agreed to settle their issues in a 20-on-1 class action handicap elimination match. Tonight at AEW Dynamite, Road Rager.
So how'd that happen? Like, I love it. What, like, did you have a specific voice in mind when you did it?
Oh, yeah. Actually, my manager, Haas, called me. He's like, hey, can you do a people's court voice? So...
Okay.
Like I've watched a few people's courts in my era.
Yeah.
I'm an old OG Wapner guy.
This is the plaintiff, Laura Valley. She says the defendant, her ex-boyfriend, owes her money she loaned him for things like rent and utilities.
Well, dude, it turned out great. It was really funny, and
Thanks.
I like that. Yeah, his whole team was there to bring the justice. Which I
Yes. Yeah, no, that was
great.
that was fun. That was that was pretty fun.
Because we were supposed to record a show that day. And then you gave me that call, and because I was in Nashville, obviously, recently for that the screening, the premiere, which I thought went really great, by the way. Like, I enjoyed it. I think the real villain of that story, if you haven't seen it, we're talking about Terror on the Prairie with Gina Carano, her new film. It was really, really, really well done. I thought she did an amazing job. I liked the main antagonist. I thought he was great. Like, what is the greatest challenge in that story is the environment, the place that they shot. It just is epic. It made me really think, like, what would it have been like to be a pioneer out on the fringes of society when you have no Walmart, there is no store. Like, if you can't get crops, you can't get food, that's it, you die. There is no medical. If you get cut, you die. You encounter, whether you encounter Native Americans or another family that's out there to do you die. So I really love that look. And what do you do as a girl like who Gina Carano's character played is from like in a city, inner city, we're going to say at the time. She lived in the city. She grew up in had all the commodities of a relatively modern town, and then she meets a guy. They have an opportunity to get land, and and then they go out west. And I like the look of like what it was like to be alive at that time and to be in that scenario. Which is more valuable: your freedom, your land, your ability to do what you want to on it, and have your own piece of something, or do you live in the system essentially? And to me, that was the greatest, most interesting question. And at the end of the film, I don't really know what she's going to decide. You don't know. But it was a lot more brutal than I thought it was going to be. I wasn't expecting it to be as brutal, but I guess the brutality fits the environment and fits the story itself. So that was just my thoughts on it. But
One of the other things, and that it kind of ties into a little bit of what I think we're going to talk about today, is where they shot it. And I believe they shot it in Montana. And that is because the COVID restrictions for shooting in Montana are much less now than they are in Los Angeles. And it made it just kind of easier to get through the shoot on a normal schedule like things used to be. And looking back at the whole history of this, I mean, we're in a new era now. But if you look back before the pandemic of 1918, the film industry was mostly European back then. Hollywood was just starting to kind of get a little foothold. And then when the pandemic hit, Hollywood, the area reacted very quickly. They recovered much earlier than the rest of the country. New York was still in trouble, but Hollywood was actually starting to thrive. And that pandemic gave Hollywood a good foothold in the filmmaking industry. Tons of people flocked there. They were making great films like the Ten Commandments and things like that. And they came to be a powerhouse because while the rest of the world was struggling, Hollywood was making these films that nobody else could at the time.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because right at the same time, that's when World War I happened in Europe. And France, the major centerpiece of where production, I think the Lumiere brothers, a lot of the early cameras that were developed there, a lot of the early cinematic language that we still use today was in France. And even though Edison had also created some stuff, it was the French who were predominantly leading the way with what cinematic storytelling was. So I think at that same time, when you have France in World War I, involved in World War I, and the pandemic that flattened everyone, it really opened up California to be the place where these things could be produced. And
even cinema is a French word. So.
Yeah, it's amazing how much influence and even later on in the French New Wave, it seems like the French have always come around to ways where they are redefining storytelling, or at least the consideration of how stories are made, which becomes that East versus West style of storytelling, the Hollywood style of storytelling versus European. And that was from the very, very beginning, it was that way. It was, what is cinematic language and how does it get determined and dictated? And you said the pre-golden age of cinema, when Los Angeles started to grow. Yeah, most people were in New York. That's like kind of where the production was, because of Broadway, the stage was there, the actors were there, a lot of the technology was there, and you had a group of people that decided to move out west and try. And predominantly was A, getting away from the pandemic, B, weather related, because they could shoot a lot of stuff. Now, cameras at the time were so big you couldn't move them. So they were still able to build studio space. It was relatively cheap. It was large. And if they did shoot on production, the chances are of it raining was slim to none. So
and you're under an hour from any kind of terrain you would want.
Yeah. Oceans, mountains, snow. Like I shot a music video last couple years, 3 years ago, I guess now. But they said we need snow and we need a beach. And I was like, cool, morning time, we're shooting in the snow, evening time, swimsuit in the beach at sunset. It was, you can do that here.
And that freedom at that time then that Hollywood gave them allowed them to showcase, the great area for filmmaking, and allowed them to become dominant in the film industry. But just as Hollywood has reacted now during this pandemic, do you feel that the continued heaviness of the lockdowns and the openness of other states to start lifting things, even beyond the pandemic, for tax reasons and things like that, do you think Hollywood is kind of pushing out their main industry now, and it's growing in other areas?
Yeah, there's a number of things that I've noticed, even just coming here to do small production. So, for example, right now you can go get permits to shoot productions. Anytime you want to shoot in LA area, you have to go through Film LA office. You have to get your license and your permits and stuff. And there is no concept of like an impact fee. It's like $1,200 to do this thing here. Like, I only have 6 people. I have no tripod. There are no lights. It's a handheld camera shoot. I'm literally doing nothing. They're like, it's $1,200.
Right.
And I was like, but that's the same price that a major film company is paying. Yep, it's $1,200. And I remember I got in trouble with the film commission because I asked them, I said, why do you do that? Like, don't you push out small productions? And I mean, at the time they make so much money, they don't care. And they said, well, it's just the way we do it. And I said, well, if I walked into your studio right now and you guys were all sitting around a table smashing yourself in the face with bricks, and I said, why are you doing that? And you said, because it's how he's always done it. What would you think? And she's like, well, you also need a fire truck too. And added a water truck. I had to have a water truck, even though I was 2 miles. I was a mile off of the parking lot. I shouldn't have opened my mouth. They have the power. That's why. That's what we have the power. You have nothing. And so what you get is a lot of people shooting guerrilla style where they're not pulling permits, or they're shooting somewhere else. Right. That has more favorable tax incentives, or they're shooting, or they're having to pay, the permit fee, because you gotta have to pay for. And I think we had a weapon, but the weapon was the Fomax. And I said, I was like, it's a foam action. She said, we have to have a weapons prop master on set, and there has to be an officer there. And so they made me pay for the officer, the prop thing. I had to pay for the water truck that never got used. The lady said, can I at least water all of these plants? Because you already paid for the water, and I just dump it in the sewer. And I was like, fine. So I paid $1,200 to water the cactuses out there. At least I was helping. So I think there's a certain mentality that people get stuck in. And I thought, why not have an impact fee? Like up to 0 to 10 people, 1 to 10 people, it's like $200 permit. And then you go up from there because, yes, I understand that the film production impacts the community. And if you're shooting with 150 people and you got trucks and everything, it's going to impact the community. So it makes sense that would be higher tiered. So why not do something like a lower tier? Well, the same thing you think about when everything shut down. So I was out here during the lockdown, and it wasn't until June that the friend that I'm working with normally to do a lot of productions, he and I are talking, and he said, dude, I'm done. I'm done with the lock. Like, do you want to work? I was like, I want to work. Let's go. Like, let's do it. So you figure out ways to make it happen. Now, a lot of productions continued, but they had a lot of rules in place. They had to have masks. You had to do testing. They're still doing testing out here for good reason. Like, I was doing a production last time, and we ended up getting sick with COVID, like other people on set. So it still spreads. It's still there. And I think testing for it is, I'm okay with that, especially if you're going to be in close proximity for an extended period of time. I think it's okay, but it was brutal. It was pretty extreme. And I think it's like you said, it's reverse pandemic.
Yeah.
Because it's like it is opening up opportunities for other places to also do production. And in case something like this happens again, you have a Montana that says, come shoot. Like, yeah, please come do it. You have, different places in areas of the country that are like, yeah, let's go. And then other states are offering tax incentives that are really hard to beat. Like, it's like 45% for New York right now. Like upstate New York, Hulu's moved up there. There's a couple companies that are starting to build some stuff up there. Georgia has theirs. Nashville just approved.
Right.
I think like a 30% one for whatever. Finally, I know there's a lot of people that have been kind of pushing for that to happen. And so I don't know. I'm just seeing a ton of production. I know a lot of directors. I know a lot of producers, and they are looking other places. And for every good reason, there's almost the why still shoot here in Los Angeles. Why? Like they're asking that now. Why are we going to shoot in LA?
Yeah.
Like, what's the benefit? And you're like, well, okay, the studio system, maybe you need a big lots, maybe you need different things. Like, well, I don't know. Pinewood has a studio. There's some Pinewood down in, in the Caribbean. About roughly the same price, better tax incentives, and we get to be in the Caribbean. Like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to accomplish with it? So I think LA's got an uphill battle. I think what is here is the funding. What is here is the distribution. What is here is the mechanism for making the films possible and making them profitable. I'm not saying every film is profitable, but if someone's going to invest in a $10 million, $20, $100 million film, they better be able to make their money back. And I think LA still holds that, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. But production itself, the moment that one of these major studios moves, like if they pull an Elon Musk and they just pull Tesla out,
right.
I don't see Universal leaving, I don't see Disney leaving, but let's say Paramount.
Right.
Paramount's like, why am I going to stay here? Like, I have these taxes, and I've got half of our production has happened in Atlanta. Some of it's in New Orleans. Like, a lot of it's East Coast. Why are we going to stay here when I can get better in tax? So I don't know. There's some really big questions coming, and it's kind of like, I think that the pandemic really is when I started hearing a lot of people asking those questions. Like, why are we even here? Like, can we be somewhere else?
I think even with the volume technology now, locations are even mean less. So
yeah, especially if you get the good, if you get a good volume, and you get a good studio. Now, you still have to have the major thing that volumes that are popping up everywhere are going to have to come into contact with and face is staff. Who's running it? You still need to be able to have enough people to team an entire film. And if you've ever watched the credits of anything like a Marvel film, or if you've ever watched, it goes on and on and on. Granted, a lot of them are designers, VFX, everything, but the main production team, okay, how many films can Nashville do right now? Like, let's say like 5 Hollywood films come out there and say, we want to shoot. We had enough of a trouble when they were doing Nashville series, because I remember trying to find other people to work on my stuff. It's like, oh, everyone's already on Nashville. So the thing
even the Green Mile or whatever. I mean, it was kind of all hands on deck kind of thing. And
Glass Castle. Last
Right.
Castle, remember they shot, everyone was on. So
Yep.
I think one of the major things that cities like Nashville can do, or cities like even Atlanta is already doing it, is continuing to pull encouragement to get those filmmakers to stay, come there. And the more things like with Pinewood that's in Atlanta is bought out by Trilith, you know, the more that they're trying to draw people and they're making communities around these areas, the better they're going to be at pulling talented filmmakers to go to these places so they can have a deeper bench when it comes to making productions. That's going to make it viable. And I think that's in the process right now. It seems like everywhere from New York to Europe, Romania has a lot of stuff that they're building, and they didn't lock down hardly at all.
Right.
So a lot of productions were still going. And so if you ever have a situation like this where pandemics change the face of the world, how things are being done, and that's when a lot of questions come up is, do we want to continue doing it the same way? Is it a viable option still for us? And that's a lot of change that's coming. And I think that's the physical pandemic, but then there's also the pandemic of what's happening, I think, between fans and between the filmmakers, or the studios at least, that are creating the films for the fans.
Right.
And maybe
Or
that,
are they?
yeah, are they? I think this is probably a touchy subject, but it's one
It
that I
is.
think you have to have this conversation, especially as a filmmaker, especially when you see a lot of films that have been coming out recently that, if you spend any time on social media, which I suggest you don't do, even though, unless you're following entertainment dudes, of course,
Right,
then you
right.
need to be on social media, is like, it's almost like a seeming war between the studios creating IP content and the fans that are watching it. And the idea of even fan service, to fan service, to not fan service. So what do you think? I know Star Wars is tricky.
It's tricky, and it's like there seems to be this thing, and a lot of articles I read that fan service, like, what they don't think fan service can be done right or creatively. And it's like, well, let's just abandon that. Even like the big thing recently with Lightyear, which has not done well at the box office, was like, you know, why didn't Tim Allen voice Buzz Lightyear? Buzz Lightyear is Tim Allen. It's not, you know.
Yeah.
And then they come out with the opening to Lightyear, which basically says, this is the movie that Andy saw that wanted him to get the Buzz Lightyear toy, you know, that inspired him to get the Buzz Lightyear toy. And when I think about toys from movies, if they don't take the actual voice actor or the actor from the movie to make the toy, they make someone sound like the actor in the movie. So that argument to me just really didn't fly. It, you know, at least Lightyear was supposed to kind of sound like Tim Allen, even if it wasn't Tim Allen.
Yeah.
So I think they wanted to go their own direction. They wanted this to be their own thing, to the detriment of the film, because the fans would have eaten it up had Tim Allen voiced Lightyear. I mean,
Yeah, because it's
nobody
what
would
you
have
grew up
complained.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
you think
it-
you grow up knowing that.
Exactly.
And I think that's the thing when you're dealing with intellectual property that spans generations. There is a certain, it's not just a film that you create. It's something that has become a part of people's lives.
Yes.
And you watch it with your kids, and their kids watch it. Now we're on to grandchildren are watching Star Wars, the original, with their grandparents. And it's like you have transcended common storytelling, and you have moved into the realm of actually a piece of intellectual property you created that has become a part of people's lives. And of course they're going to care about it very, very deeply. And you really have to handle it almost like a religion. That's like in the fan films that Ray and I have created, that we've worked on together. Like I think we found a great balance between coming up with new ideas and then
Right.
also giving something that fans love. And just based upon what they're saying, you know, that they absolutely love it. They're like, why can't we create that? This is what we're looking for, you know? So I think because for us, it's like, okay, we picture it like a religion. I'm not saying it is, but people have like all it's almost like scripture, right? So you have like this is the text. You can't deviate from the text because this is the way that it was founded. You created a universe, you created rules, you created characters, and those rules exist no matter who's at the helm. So I think it's almost the responsibility of the person who is at the helm of a story to consider already all of everything that's come before. And it's a tricky space to be in for like somebody like Filoni, who has been so instrumental in creating what we perceive as Star Wars today, because he was at Lucas and now he's at Disney, and he's created so many of the beloved characters that we have, or at least has helmed the creation of those characters, right? And so when people are saying, you know, change, push harder, do this, and Filoni's like, well, if I'm going to do this, it's going to push it outside of the realm of the established world and universe that we created. And sometimes you want to like, okay, take a risk, do something. And I think that's what was happening when you first saw Star Wars Episode 7, which was very interesting because it had a lot of safe. Oh, they played it really safe. I was like, I think they played it safe on purpose because they recognize fans can go crazy about this. We need to give them something that they are familiar with. But then they also didn't take as many risks, but they created some pretty cool characters that I was excited to see. Okay, I'm interested in seeing what happens to these characters. Like, maybe I thought Episode 7 was safe, but I was like, okay, who's Finn? That's really exciting. Like a stormtrooper that's force sensitive, that becomes like, I want to follow this guy's journey. That's interesting. Like Poe's character, really interesting. Like he's this cocky pilot guy who thinks he's got everything under control. Clearly, he's going to be put in situations he can't handle. Who the heck is Snoke? Okay, I like it's a mystery. We don't know who this guy is. So Phasma was like, this person's incredible. She's going to be a villain of epic proportions.
Tons of potential.
Correct. And I think if you're going to make changes to a story and you're going to prep a fan base to be open to new ideas, I think Episode 7 really, really did it well. Safe, yes, it was safe. It was really fun. It was entertaining. We got to see some of our favorite characters. I don't know, killing off Han, whatever. Okay, fine. Han wanted to die because he's like, I'm done with Han Solo. I want him to die. Okay, whatever. Okay, fine. You're Han. You do what you want. But as far as the other pieces of those components, I'm interested. Yes, like, okay, they say, you know, Rey's Mary Sue, blah, 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 or she's not, or she is, or she isn't. Fine, whatever. She's an interesting character to me, and I like her portrayal of her in Episode 7. I was like, all right, I can enjoy her character. I like her. She's cool. She's cool to me. So I think that's why when you go into a sequel, especially something like Last Jedi, I got to go see the screening. Like Ryan Johnson came to the screening. It was there in the Chinese theater. It was all the fans. It was like the day that it opened. They had the premiere and then they had the screening. And I think the energy was really exciting. It's because Star Wars fans go freak out about the content. They love Star Wars. But it's like that aftertaste. It's like you drink something, you're like, wait a minute, this really doesn't add up. This doesn't make sense. What about this? Like, and there's this sense of disappointment that comes from the separation that came from what you'd already built, which is kind of what I think I want to talk about is how do you make a good sequel? Like, what makes a good sequel? You've already established, in an established universe, technically any project you ever create here on out is a sequel.
Correct.
Because you're building something in the universe that already exists, so it's a sequel. What makes a sequel interesting is I think that they could have had an incredible sequel. And if you really want to create Rey as this character who's tempted by the dark side, I think you really need to lean into her scavenger character. Her parents abandoned her. She grew up on this rough planet where everything is criminal and you have to struggle to survive. I imagine there's some anger, there's some resentment, there's a lot of this stuff that's built up and a desire to punish the people that hurt her. That's interesting to me. Like you have set up an interesting character. And then now an opportunity to come when she's presented with this opportunity with the guy that she clearly is interested in, who has supreme power, and maybe even her good side is like, hey, we could actually use this to do good. Like if I can just change him, you know, that there's that myth, that idea that you're going to change the guy that you're with, you know, you're going to make him better. That's interesting as well. And I think then you present a more tempting lure when they're like, hey, join me in this. You know, there's a greater temptation. So I think I like some of the setup that they did to create a really, really cool sequel. And then for me, The Last Jedi I don't know, it hurt. It was like one of those things that I thought they didn't, even if they ignored the rest of Star Wars, they didn't fulfill what they created. I was like, that's a hard.
But there had been this very public outcry from Disney itself, basically from some camps in Disney itself, saying we're getting away from the established characters. We're building a new Star Wars. And it's like, why do you have to do that to the detriment of what's already been built? You don't.
No, and that's why I think Rogue One to me is
Mm-hmm.
probably one of the greatest films
Right.
in the Disney Star Wars franchise. Mandalorian also, which I love, and Rogue One.
And that's kind of said that they were almost saved Star Wars, the Mandoverse, a little bit too.
and I to me, Rogue One was an incredible story. It's like a
Right.
sequel. It takes place on that idea. You understand that this is happening out there. Luke
Right.
is out there somewhere. All this stuff is happening. But it's irrelevant to the characters that we're following. And to me, that's how you say we're going to change what we're doing without saying we're going to change what we're doing. It's literally like, here's two really cool characters. Here's a girl in this universe that's grown up different from anyone else. She has no power. She has nothing special. She's just a girl. But this just a girl ends up being someone who ends up helping save the universe. It's a fantastic story. And then you introduce these amazing characters and you pull it all into a universe. It's grittier feeling than the rest of them. It veered away from the stylistically, it veered away from it. Story-wise, like how it focused, it veered away from it. So to me, that's like, okay, if they want to go in a direction, they created a roadmap to do it.
Right.
Then you follow that up with Mandalorian, which I thought was people love Mandalorian. That's fan service. How many people have friggin' loved from Boba Fett all the way through who these ideas through Clone Wars, who the Mandalorians are? There's an excitement and energy behind it. Good pick, like fantastic pick. That's great idea. And then the execution in terms of the storytelling was so well done. It's a gritty world. It's this realistic look at a bounty hunter, which has always been fascinating for us, like the bounty hunter characters and this dark underbelly of the veneer of the Empire, what it's really like to live in the aftermath of the Empire. It was brilliant. It was great storytelling.
What's your take on a Boba Fett though? Because he was always such a bit character, but a very popular character, and he was always seen as this, mean, tough, whatever. And he kind of got soft. And I loved the Boba Fett series, but he kind of got, I think, too soft and not as active. It was like they almost changed the character.
I think one of the major issues for me is in Mandalorian. I mean, in Boba Fett was what you said, a core issue. People's core doesn't change unless they've experienced something ridiculously traumatic. Now, being swallowed and ingested by a creature maybe and digested in the
Traumatic.
fluids. Traumatic, yes, but is it core changing? Does it change the core? What got him to get out of that Sarlacc was the fact that he friggin' is Boba Fett.
Exactly.
Like, he cut his way through it. He punched his way out of the belly. He burned it insides. And then despite the fact that he was covered in acid and destroyed, he punched his way out of a Sarlacc.
Right.
Like, that core character there doesn't mess around. There is no... It's just one thing for him, survival. Survival and cash, money. That's what he does. And what do you need to survive? Money. More money to survive. Why? So I can control my environment. I control the people around me. I can control my environment. So to me, the story of Boba Fett should have been about control.
Yeah.
And the real challenge would have been deliberately choosing to relinquish control to the benefit of other people. That would have been a core shift in Boba Fett that I think would have been a believable shift in his core. It doesn't change the fact that he's tough, he's hard, he's violent, he's he's this kind of character. It changes the why he does it, the motivations that his core are moved or motivated by. And right to this point, okay, what changed Mandalorian's motivation? Care for a creature more vulnerable than him at that time.
And that worked to great effect.
And it worked in Mandalorian, but then does that become a crutch to other stories? Like, are there other ways to get a hardened character to care about someone else besides a child? So what gets Obi-Wan to leave now? A child, What gets different characters motivated to help besides children? So I think for me, it's like, okay, you have Boba Fett who isn't involved with the child. What gets him motivated to change? I don't see he works with the Sand People and he ends up having a relationship. But Sand People, to me, they're violent.
Yeah.
They show a different side to them. They show like there's more to them than just a veneer of violence. There's a society behind it. There's art. There's which is cool. I love the character. I never thought about Sand People like that, and I loved it. And I think maybe that piece would have only served to harden him, but it would have also given him an idea of community and family, which is ultimately where I think Disney went with it, was the idea of Boba Fett looking for family. Because once he tasted it, it's like, but...
I think the other tribes of Sand People would have been upset at the massacre of this tribe as well.
Oh, yeah. And I think, I thought that's where they were going to go with it. I thought it was a unification of the Sand People because
Right.
under a Boba Fett type character, even though he's an outsider, he's someone, and it would take an outsider to unite them around a common cause. So that's why I think, and then I think you got a character like Boba Fett, but you're pulling the attention away from him in a series of 6 episodes to other things, which I think are cool. Of course, I like, I love Luke. I love seeing
Right.
whatever. I like these other pieces, but to me, it really pulls away the attention from the character that they work so hard to build the show around. And so I really felt like I lost Boba Fett in the story of everything. And maybe that's what they're saying. He was a bit character who got lost in the Star Wars universe because there were other people that were more important or bigger than him, and so he got lost. I don't know if that was the intention, but that's what it communicated to me, when you were watching it. So it's very hard to make Star Wars stuff because you have people are so passionate about it. And how do you enact any changes inside of a universe that people already have set in their mind? Lucas did it in 1, 2, and 3, episode 1, 2, and 3. He had a riot. Like, people were rioting like 1, 2, and 3. Oh, worst series. This isn't anything like it. Da, 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 da. But then now, the kids who grew up in the 90s,
It's looked on a lot differently.
they friggin' love it. And
Yeah.
I think that's what I saw recently. Like, Ewan McGregor did an interview. He's like, people were freaking out. Obi-Wan and like Anakin. He's like, it's coming back like we just shot it. He's like, the excitement and the energy is there. And I think it's because those people grew up in those characters that became the Star Wars universe for them. So, but then they also have expectations about what these characters are like.
That gets a lot into, I guess, even to what Star Trek is doing, because Star Trek has tried to stay relevant all of these years, and that's because they've moved their target demographic to the newer demographics as they move along. They've kept their timeline and their story, except for going to the new timeline with the newer movies. But the rest of the Star Wars universes, or Star Trek universe, is in that prime timeline, even up to Picard and all these series. And what they've done is for the most part, they have kept the continuity, but they have moved their target demographic to the current demographic. It has not always been a success, but I tell you, the first show where they didn't really move their target demographic was Enterprise. And Enterprise, at least it was on 4 years, but it kind of failed because they were still trying to hit the boomers when there were more Gen Xers watching at that point in time.
Yeah.
And it failed. So I think there's a way to do it, to still have that fan service and to still tell a good story and to still keep canon what's canon, but move the way you tell the story to your target demographic.
Yeah, and I think to me, I think I actually loved Solo, the movie Solo.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Loved it. And I think some people that are like, there's a fight about it. I think a lot of the backlash about why Solo did not do well wasn't because people didn't want to see somebody else playing Han. It's because it was a response to what happened in Last Jedi.
Exactly.
I think there is sometimes I think when you're in a corporation or maybe bigger companies, there seems to be like a disconnect between why a film isn't performing well and why they think it isn't performing well. And I almost guarantee the reason why Solo did not do well was because it was the fans' response to The Last Jedi. How do fans punish people that are handling the content? They punish them by not spending money on the stuff.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Solo was a fantastic story. It was a great piece. Like, you got to find this the dude did a phenomenal job portraying Solo. And I was, at first I was like, okay, watch it. Like, I got to get this in my head. This is Solo, this is Solo, this is Solo. But then, like, once it was there, it was fantastic for me. I enjoyed the film from beginning to end.
they got scared after that, and we're looking at the wrong thing, like you said, and we're all of a sudden like, no, we're never going to have somebody else play another Star Wars character again, and that was the wrong thing to do.
And that's why I think you come back to CG, and then that's when I'm like,
Uncanny Valley, and yeah. But then look ahead and look at the fans wanting so much for Sebastian Stan to play Luke. There was an outcry for that.
Yeah.
And
well, then also like you have an outcry. A lot of people wanted Rosario to play Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
But now then there's like the backlash from like, oh, she's not right, it's not right. So I think, it's that balancing trick in the studio system when you listen to the fans, when you don't. I think the most important part is being religiously respectful of the universe itself. And if you're going to make changes to the universe, you have to justify the changes with a causal reason that fans can say, I understand why that happened.
Not a don't ask questions, this is how it is now.
Correct. If you can do that, like Boba Fett changes his character. Why? If something happened to him that motivated the change for him to become a softer version of himself, we would need to see it. And then the fans can say, I like it or don't like it, but I understand it. And so it's the same thing when you have a story like this, when you're creating the universe. It has been established, the rules are set up, there's books about it, there's comics about it, there's literally religions that have been started based upon this thing. And I have seen the fans, they love this universe.
Yeah.
And I don't think the filmmakers set out to say, hey, I'm going to create something that's disappointing to all of my fans, that the fans will hate. Like, who does that? I don't think anybody does that. But at the same time, I think sometimes the desire to change Star Wars to what you want it to be, you don't, even though you're in control, it's your IP, it's your power, it's your money. There's almost a right that you don't have to do it. And if you try to force it on the community of people that enjoy that thing, you're going to receive backlash until you can prove why the change had to take place. And the better that you show it rather than tell it. Like, you shouldn't have to write documentaries or stories or to tell, here's why we made this change, so accept it. Or, screw you, this is how it is. Go watch something else. I mean, you can do that, but you do that enough times, who's going to watch it anymore, So that's why I think it's a real trick in that space. Same thing with, like, what do you think with Marvel?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, there is a responsibility there. This world is built. There are billions of fans, and there is now a responsibility to keep this connected and to keep track of everything and keep continuity. And it's not just, oh, this is a piece of entertainment, we're going to change something and make it. No, it's not that anymore. It's taken on a life of its own.
Yeah. And
So.
I think it's also important in consideration of Star Wars was built with mass appeal.
Yes.
Star Trek has become more mass appeal. I think in the original was not like, it has been mass appeal.
It has always been. Star Trek has always opened the world up to more acceptance, and I mean, it's a very the first on-screen interracial kiss was on Star Trek the original series. It's always been a groundbreaking series, and yeah.
Well, I think also, Marvel has been built with mass appeal and has built an audience with millions of dollars spent over generations now, literally. And to use it more as a tool to bludgeon an idea. Like, if you want to share, it's like if you politicize something, and I really don't want to go big into that stuff, but you see sometimes if you try to use these intellectual properties as a mass communication tool to force or push an idea, you're going to receive a backlash that is far greater, because it's like the mass of something that's going. It's like a rubber band that can stretch and stretch, but when it comes back, it will come back with a destructive force. So again, I think stories can tell a message. Like you said, Star Trek was always talking about morality, issues of morality, questions of what's right, what's wrong, how do you handle certain situations, and then you put them in it and you examine how they behave and how they respond. And to me, that's always what storytelling is about. Aesop's fables, anything going back to Proverbs, it's always been about storytelling.
It's like if Coca-Cola just started saying, okay, we're keeping the Coca-Cola label, but we're just going to bottle milk from now on. That's Coca-Cola from now on. People would be upset, not because they're serving milk, because they didn't come out with a new milk brand. If Coca-Cola said, okay, we've got Coca-Cola and we've got this new milk product we're putting out, people would enjoy them both. But they would create a huge uproar just trying to replace Coca-Cola with milk.
Yeah, and then just saying like that's just how it is. Like
that's how it is.
Deal with it. And I think there's a consideration you have to have. Like, let's say half of your audience is excited about it and like, yeah, this is great, best thing that ever happened, and you have half of your audience that isn't. I think going through that space and saying like, tough, that's how it is, deal with it, is going to push away a lot of people, and it's going to affect the story. It's going to affect the environment, the relationships, how they respond on social media, the way that they talk to each other about it. And those things can be divisive. And I think that's what I see is I just see a divisiveness in an intellectual property that doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be divisive because, by the very nature of what it is, it's a mass appeal thing to an audience that can really enjoy it. And you say nowadays, oh, I don't know if an audience can still enjoy something on all sides. And then I would challenge you to look at Top Gun.
Yeah. Good point.
I'm not saying every single person loved Top Gun, but a majority of people did. And that's incredible sequel storytelling that paid homage to the original, that took a character, like you already have an original, how do you tell a new story from that? And now you deal with Tom Cruise being more mature. Some people I heard, oh, it should have maybe been his son. And I'm like, did you watch it? They're like, no.
Right.
And I said, then you literally are missing out on one of the greatest sequels of all time, because it's about a guy who had, now in the future, he's dealing still with the things that he did not overcome in his past. And so now he's really forcing to confront the fact that these are the choices he's made, and he's still in the same place that he was before. And now it's like that, what now that I've, past my prime, I can't do this anymore. I'm being replaced. Like it's a story that resonates with so many people in such a powerful way. And it pays homage to the original story. It showcases positive things in terms of what it happens, the challenges that it faces. But then it just leaves you with this excitement, like, oh my gosh, it was just fun. And it's possible. And it has 90%, 80, but it has both critics and fans saying it's a fantastic story. So to say, oh, you can't do it anymore, I don't think that's true.
I think Tom Cruise, too, has always been a stickler for, A, protecting his image, and B, for protecting the IPs he's involved in.
Oh, yeah.
That's a big thing with him today. A lot of people don't care who they alienate. They're just going to say what they want to say. I don't think Tom Cruise is like that. He just tries to please fans.
Yeah, unless he's on set and he's upset about protocol being broken.
That's true. But to be honest, even though that came out, he did that to the effect of protecting the IP and to being responsible to the fans for putting out a product.
I don't think he was really as mad as he was. Like when I looked at what the reason was, I said he's got millions of dollars.
Yeah, tied up
into the show. He's got all of the people that are working on the show that they're working on. He has like thousands of families that will be impacted by any one small infraction, because they were shutting everything down. You can't have this,
Right.
you can't have this. So like I go back through it and I listened to what he was saying, and I was like, I don't think he was as like, I think he was mad, he was upset, but a lot of stuff he was doing to actually make a point so that they would not forget.
One little mistake like that could make that whole house just fall.
Done. And I
Yeah.
think for him it was like, okay, this is the unfortunate person that happens to be needs to be the lesson. And I had that before. The reason why I say that is because in production, when I was teaching at New York Film Academy, I had one of my students who didn't do his homework. He came in again late, and I was like, he needs to be the person. And so, I mean, I ripped into him, even though I wasn't mad at all. And I never yelled, but I ripped everyone in the class like, oh my gosh, and they talk about it to this day. They remember it. And so I think the point is sometimes yelling or getting that level where he is so that people will pay attention. It's like an exclamation point in a
Right.
sentence. And I think when I look back, I watched it first. I was like, wow, he's really, really got, like, he went overboard. But then I looked back and thought, no, you know what? It actually makes sense because of what was at stake if one thing got messed up. And
Right.
if it took one person getting torn up and down in front of people, and even if he's like, I look like a jackass, people are going to hate me, it doesn't matter. It still gets the thing done. And the story is there. It's in everyone's head. And not only was it on that production, every single production I was on after that, they all knew what Tom Cruise said, and it impacted the entire industry. So
Yeah.
there's some people like that when they say something, everyone listens. And we listened. Like, everyone heard what he said, you know? And so it's like, you know, like the dad, you're like, oh, Dad's always, he's mad at me, blah, blah, blah. But when you grow up and you look back, you're like, you know, thanks, Dad, for the disciplining. You know, I didn't.
I think a big thing that's kind of been lost is with so much reality TV and so much entertainment was originally, at least in Hollywood, maybe an escape or a reflection on something great in the past, like, you know, the biblical epics and things like that. But most of it was an escape from your daily life. And a few generations preferred some of the darker, grittier storytelling. And I think reality merged a little bit too much with entertainment, and people have a hard time separating the two now. And things have to have this certain amount of realism. Or I was watching a British sitcom the other day thinking, wow, that is just so out there and so surreal that would never even make it to TV here. And I'm thinking, but
Unless you're the
comedy
Orville.
and yeah, true. And they've got it though. They've got it. They're taking that escape material, but they're also taking good storytelling and they're balancing it perfectly.
Yep.
The Orville is. It's an amazing watch. They still tackle some of the day's subjects like Star Trek, the original series, used to do. They still tackle some of those issues and subjects, but they also have good storytelling. They have comedy, and then they have this sense of escapism where you're in that world for a little while and you forget about the world you're in.
Well, and I think that's the greatest way to deliver a message.
Yes.
Is in the middle of a story that you're lost in. One
Exactly.
that you're not fighting to watch, or you're feeling like every screen is a gut punch. It's just heavy and depressing. It's when you're just kind of chilled, relaxed. Like I think I was rewatched an episode where in Orville where Bortus and them, they have the cigarettes that they're manufacturing, and then the captain, the pilot he meets the girl on the phone from the past, you know.
Yes.
And I love it. He's going through this virtual reality. He creates this virtual reality girl from a 400-year-old phone and is falling in love with her.
Right.
And I love it. His friend, who's the captain, he just says, dude, there are certain things that are real, and no matter how badly you want to believe that thing exists, the fact is it doesn't. Like, it was just lost in a fun story, and it throws out that question that you can either ignore or you can say, you know what, that's a good question. I want to engage in that, and it's entertaining, and I didn't like, oh, I'm shutting this off, this is dumb. It was just
No, that was a very deep reaching episode while also having the elements where you were somewhere else. You weren't in your own life. You weren't in your own problems. Yet it still hit
Yeah.
that emotion.
Yeah, and it deals with addiction too, and
Yeah.
it deals with like what
Yeah.
does it take, finding someone else who's also addicted. What is it like when two people are addicted to the same thing or trying to help each other? It's the blind leading the blind. You know, you're both walking into a pits together. So it takes someone on the outside who can see outside of your addiction to provide an off ramp to help you, but you have to want to do it. So you see, boys, like, yeah, we don't want to be addicted to this anymore. We can't do it together. We certainly can't do it ourselves. We need help. And so, what a great way to tell that story.
Yeah.
But in a way that your sides are hurting because you're laughing so hard. It's just, yeah, like you said, it's good storytelling. It's escapism, but it also presents a universe that you can get lost in. And the balance that they did to tell the story was incredible.
So you tell us, people, what do you want to see from movies and television and Hollywood? Do you want it to be an escape? Do you want it to be more reality, that where you escape reality to go into your own reality again? What do you want it to be? What do you want to see from entertainment from this point on in your life forward? What do you like about what's currently coming out now? What do you hate about what's currently coming out? Let us know in the comments and tell us, and we'll talk about that in future episodes. Maybe we can help shape the future of entertainment so that everyone can have their escape again.
That's right. Hey, if you are joining us for the first time, like and subscribe to Entertainment Dudes. You can also catch us on any podcast platform. You can catch us on Apple, or on Spotify, we're on Google Play, anywhere that you can find your podcast. We'd love for you to join our growing family and engage in the conversation. Also, if you do like our show and want to support what we're creating at entertainmentdudes.com, this is merch.entertainmentdudes, or is it? Yeah, merch.entertainmentdudes.com. You can check out the shirts. I wear this because it's comfy and I like it, and it also has our cool faces. You can get one with our faces, without our faces, and some of the other fun stuff that's appearing in our store. So,
and this is still the original one I've had since like the beginning. It's like
same here. I didn't change this one. It's the same.
Yeah, say they last.
Great. Yeah, they last. It's actually a really good tea. So even if you don't, you can still order the tea without anything on it, and it's still a good tea. But I'm sure you'd rather support us as we grow. And right now, everything that is coming from these things is going to go into production as we grow. We're getting new studio spaces, cameras. People start working with us as we go out more and more. So your support.
New microphones,
new cameras, all of these things that you need in order to create a growing and thriving podcast. So, anyways. Thanks for joining us
on Entertainment Dudes. Ooh.